Friends, I am really excited to be coming back with another demo of something that is currently live, open source on my GitHub. And it's something that I've been working on for the last week. And again, the really incredible thing about vibe coding is that now we have a kind of infinite canvas where as soon as I have an idea for something that I've been thinking about for a long time, now instead of just writing about it and trying to get people engaged, I can actually build a functioning prototype of the project that I'm trying to bring into the world. So what I want to share with you today is a demo for a tool that I've created called Consensus. And I was really inspired by the work of Polis and the Computational Democracy Project, and also Harmonica, and a lot of amazing work that's happening in the AI sense-making space right now. And so really what I wanted to do was I wanted to give AI superpowers to dialogue facilitators that are trying to engage a large community to identify what their shared priorities are, what their shared needs are, and to use AI to not just parse the information semantically, but also to create structured data that would allow for a system to analyze more of the data analytics that are usually part of kind of large scale statistical analysis of public participation in democratic processes. And so this is just an early prototype of something that I want to scale into something that could be implemented at the municipal scale. So imagine you are attending a public comment or going to a public meeting for your government, and you want to participate and share your voice. This tool allows for people in office, people who work in government, but also anyone who's facilitating a large network or community to be able to engage their constituents in a way that really surfaces where there is alignment and also helps to guide a dialogue process towards where there is consensus and alignment. And so in the short demo, I'm going to walk you through how the tool works, how you can use it today in a process that you facilitate, and then explain a little bit more at the end about the long-term vision for how this could evolve. So without further ado, here is Consensus. And I'm going to walk you through the basic functionality, and I'm going to create some demo data for us to be able to walk through together. So here you can see we can create a session and get started. So we can create a new event, and this is the opportunity for you to share what this dialogue is focused on. And so this is gonna be a public consultation on what is exploring the purpose of government. And this is a discussion, but it can be a consultation, public planning, number of participants, public, and we can set a start and end time and a registration deadline. But for now, we're just going to leave those open-ended. And we're going to create an inquiry here. And so this is trying to guide a dialogue. So that starts with an inquiry. So we're going to say the purpose of government. And we're going to say, what is the purpose of government? And an open-ended question, and it's required. We're going to create the event. We're going to manage the event. We're going to publish it so that people can participate in it. And now we're going to go to participate. So now this would be a link that you can send to your community. Right now, the tool is set up to run on your local network. We're going to push a version of it that can be run anywhere in the world, and you can send the link to anyone to participate. But for right now, it's all running here locally, which is another cool part that I'll explain later on and why I think local first is really important. So I'm going to fill out this inquiry with some mock data that was generated by ChatGPT, answering this question from a diversity of perspectives. So I'm just going to enter that information in now. Okay, so now I've added all of those responses, so I'm going to save and exit. And while this processes, I can explain what's happening in the background here. So AI analysis is looking at all of these responses through a kind of semantic correlation, kind of feeding them in as a prompt and trying to look for common patterns between them. Cluster mapping is doing what Polis does, but interestingly, Polis requires structured data as an input to be able to create structured data as an output, to be able to cluster and do algorithmic analysis of the responses that are provided. And so what's happening here instead is that AI is creating structured data based on the statements that are shared in the natural language, and then it's running the analysis on that structured data. And so it's getting the same algorithmic analysis, but instead of requiring people to input structured data, it allows for them to input natural language. And so we can see it started to cluster beliefs and ideas here. And so these on the outside are more critical of government. On the inside here, there's mostly about institutional patterns, or sorry, the orange is more institutional, and the blue is more about stewardship of the commons. So it's already chunked these into three main clusters. And then under analysis, it's identifying themes, common concerns, suggested actions. And then here in the sentiment timeline, this becomes really useful when we are progressing multiple rounds of dialogue to be able to see how sentiment is trending over time. And in the word cloud, we're just seeing concepts that are being pulled out that are being widely used. Obviously, government comes out on top, but we can start to see, there are some patterns that we can notice here. Now, the really cool thing is the consensus graph, which is taking these clusters here and then seeing how aligned each cluster is with itself. And so the government as a collective problem solving has two responses that are very aligned. Liberty and collective good has two responses that are very aligned. Stewardship and responsibility has two responses that are very aligned. These are more of the critiques. And so this is just helping us as a facilitator look at, what the value systems are of the people who are participating in this process, so that we can design the dialogue in such a way that moves the conversation towards more shared alignment. Because often when we're having a conversation, especially in the public sphere, where we're not in our inner group of people who already agree with us, we're actually having to interact with people who have vastly different belief systems than us. Oftentimes, we're never talking about the thing that we're talking about. We're usually talking about the underlying value system that we all embody and how they differ from each other. And so this tool is intended to surface that information so that the conversation can actually be generative and guided towards solving real problems. And so right now we're going to start the dialogue round process. And so what's happening now is that AI is looking at all of this data, and it's generating prompts for the next round of conversation that are designed to guide us towards more alignment and consensus. So this is providing a summary of the previous round, what happened, what people said, kind of general patterns and divergences. And so now we have prompts that have been generated by AI for the next round of the human conversation. Previously, we think about prompts as prompting the AI, but now the AI is prompting us so that we can have a better conversation. And so we can regenerate each one of these or all of them. If we don't like them, the AI can try again. Let's say we do like them and we want to approve and start the next round. So now we're progressing into the next round. And so the participant will now see insights from the previous round on their dashboard when they, in the same window where they entered their first feedback, and we see where there is consensus, where there are common values, common desired outcomes, common strategies. So instead of focusing on the divergence, we're actually trying to nudge the conversation to things that we actually already have in common. It'll show the end user the cluster mapping so they can see, okay, here's the values that are in the room, the value systems, and here's the focus areas for this round. We're reimagining governance structures. We're fostering collaborative leadership. We're exploring the role of technology in governance. And so now the process continues, and people are invited to share their responses to these questions. And when the facilitator feels as though, okay, we've had enough rounds of conversation, then we are going to try to harvest the information that we've generated. And so while this is loading, I can kind of explain the longer vision of this. The end state that I'm really aiming towards would involve self-sovereign identity, where you can prove that you are in fact a constituent of a particular jurisdiction, and also a kind of persistent civic memory. If we think about voting as a very highly compressed and very lossy signal of your preferences, what you want to see more of in the world, then this kind of interface where you're able to speak in natural language about what you desire, what you prefer, then that information is more effective at making policy than just electing one person every 4 years. And so what the future state of this system would allow would be for you to actually have access to your own data store that represents your perspectives, your desired outcomes. And you would be able to use that information in all sorts of public settings and have your own personal preferences reflected in the civic processes that you participate in. Okay, so that took a minute because it was processing a ton of information here locally on my device. And one of the benefits of processing that information locally is that this application can be entirely free to use for everyone forever using AI models that are on your device. Now, you can configure this tool to run with models that are not as sophisticated as the one that I'm currently using. Results may vary. I'm currently running an M2 Max Apple Silicon chip, and I don't quite know what the kind of upper and lower limits are for local AI processing. I know that this is a new Mac with very well configured setup, and it is still really struggling with even just 20 responses. And so I imagine that for kind of larger scale civic dialogue processes, we would need to have this tool reconfigured to work with the APIs of the major large language models, and that would probably cost a few dollars maximum per dialogue. But right now, just for the proof of concept, everything is running here locally on my device, which is why that just took so long. So now that we've reached the end of the process, we're going to end the dialogue. And this means the event is complete. No further rounds can be added. Round has been ended. And so now we want to take all of this information that we generated through this public consultation, and we want to export it. And so let's say we want a synthesis report. We can see the comprehensive summary of all the dialogue rounds, a proposal, which is an AI generated document based on dialogue outcomes, an agreement. So let's say you're trying to come to an agreement and everyone shares their perspectives, and then it tries its best to state an agreement that everyone can agree to, or a roadmap. How do you want to implement the results of the conversation? So let's just say we're just going to get a synthesis report. We're going to get it as a markdown document, and we're going to download. So that was quick. So now let me show you what it created. This is what we get from the system automatically. So this is an overview. We had 20 responses, explaining the purpose of government, key themes, consensus points, common desired outcomes, common values, common strategies, overall synthesis. So you can see there's not a ton of information in here, but as a facilitator, I'm getting a really rich summary of the perspectives that were shared in a conversation. So that's what this tool is designed for. It's free to use. You can download it on GitHub right now at github.com/omniharmonic/cosensus. And as I stated, I have a long-term vision to continue building this project with partners that can bring in the zero knowledge identity to really make it secure and stable for real life use in a real civic context. And also partnering with friends of mine who are working on memory solutions that would allow this data to actually belong to you and travel with you across different civic processes that you're participating in. We also want to start experimenting with this in city council races. So here in Boulder, locally, we have a city council race coming up in the fall. And the idea here would be to run this kind of a process in parallel to the dialogue that's happening between candidates to help reveal how aligned constituents are with their candidates and to help guide the candidate conversation towards areas that are most relevant and important to their constituents. And so that's what we're going to be experimenting with here in Boulder. Can't wait to hear how you might experiment with using this tool for your community or your network. So thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.